Hello, I'm Cynthia Fannin. I'm a clinical instructor for about 18 years now, and I want to ask you, how are your clinicals going? Are they going like you want them to go? Do you need some help? Would you like for your clinicals to be more engaging? I've been doing it for a long time, been trying a lot of products, mostly my own, and I love it, and we have a great time. I have heard from other clinical people and students from other colleges that they've not had the best experience, that it's been kind of boring, they sit for a long time, not really engaging, they don't get to do a lot of stuff. I've also heard from, like, seeing people in the elevator where floors where my students have been, and they'll say, I wish you guys jumped in, you helped, you was really busy and involved. And they said these clinical instructors have their students standing around waiting in the back hall taking turns, which there is some waiting sometimes, but I don't think, like I said before, I don't think people are lazy. I don't think they know what to do. The same with a clinical instructor. At first you don't know how to keep them active, you don't know how to keep them engaged. I have been working on this for all these years and I've got it down. Also, I get better every year, I ramp it up every year. So some of the things that we do is, one thing, I go around and I pick their brains. I say, what's going on with your patient? And then I ask them, well, how did they prove they had the heart attack? Or, how does this all go together? How do we get from here to here? And I've had them come back and say, hey, I found out what happened. How did they go from a GI bleed to a leg fracture? How's come they came in with this and they ended up with this, So we really work through that. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, Or like we had a patient who had an INR of 14, which is so dangerous. And we really, how did that get there? How could this happen? Found out, of course, he had liver disease and he was on Coumadin. There's a lot of different things going on there. But I like to spur them to think, how do we get from here to there? And another thing that we do is grand rounds, and we don't do it every day, but when we have time we do. That's when one student goes into a room with other students and that student leads it, and they will tell us all about the patient. You have to have a patient who's user friendly, though, that doesn't mind people in the room, and they'll tell us all about the patient in front of the patient, and then the patient will add their story. And then we can ask, like, how did it feel when you had a heart attack? What was your clues that you were having another heart attack? What happened in your recovery? And it is just so rewarding. We have talked to a Vietnam vet. We've talked to somebody who had a prosthetic leg. Told us all kinds of things about his prosthesis, swelling and different ways of caring for it, and just really, really cool stuff. I have a thirst for knowledge, and I want them to have a thirst for knowledge, and they do, but I want to spark that. So that's one thing fun that we do. Another thing is we play the great detective, and if a student goes the extra mile to find an answer to a question that came up, then they win a little stapler at the end of the day. But it's so cool because they're like, I got a great detective, and they'll tell me what they found out. And I think that's awesome. Like one guy had a big blood clot in his leg, and he hadn't been on a long trip, he hadn't had surgery, he hadn't had any clotting issues, and he was like 47. We're like, what? Well, the student come back later and said, I found out. One thing, he was uncontrolled diabetic. Another thing is he was a smoker, and the third thing is he was homeless and he sat in his car all day long. So he was immobile. So that was kind of cool. So she got a stapler and she loved it. Another thing, I just really, just pick their brains. I want them to be in. Every time the doctor goes in a room, I want the student in there with them because I want them to take ownership. I want them to hear what the doctor has to say, and they can translate to the patient if they need to, but I want them in there. Sometimes you can learn from the doctor explaining a lot more than you ever could read in a chart. Also, I have the students look at the notes, and if they kind of fuzzy like what happened, go look at the notes and look at the emergency room notes. What did they come in with? It's found in somebody's yard with, blacked out or whatever. But it's a great way to see where they started. So if you need any help, at clinicalcorner@yahoo.com, you can email me. I have a service that I send out notes, games, and things, 3 of them every month for only $24 for a year. But I have a lot of ideas that I use with my students every day. And my students are inquisitive, they're engaged, and they come out strong and confident. And I take great pride in that. So drop me a line.